Evidence of a deep state cabal or an elaborate hoax. The speculation and conspiracy theories surrounding the Jeffrey Epstein case just won't go away. And President Trump isn't happy. He wants to focus on the achievements of his first 6 months. The Democrats want to take advantage of disagreement within the GOP. Could this be the issue that sees MAGA Republicans turn on their commander-in-chief? It's up for debate on CounterPoints with me, Melinda Nusafora. President Trump has found himself having to answer questions about Jeffrey Epstein almost on a daily basis at the moment.
And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable.
I don't understand why they would be so interested. He's dead for a long time. He was never a big factor in terms of life. I don't understand what the interest or what the fascination is. I really don't.
However, the intrigue surrounding the Epstein case isn't dying down, and the Democrats are taking advantage. On social media, the president has denied there's a split in the GOP, saying his poll numbers have never been stronger and have even gone up since what he called the Epstein hoax was exposed. But there's no doubt it sparked public interest. The latest Economist YouGov survey found the vast majority of Americans said they think the government should release the Epstein documents, and that includes 75% of Republicans. Coming up on CounterPoints, we'll debate whether the administration has mishandled this controversy, if the Epstein case could cause a split in the Republican camp, and whether the Democrats have jumped on the bandwagon, demanding full transparency when they neglected to do so while in office. Joining us to discuss how the Epstein case is impacting US politics is Josh Hammer, Newsweek's senior editor-at-large and host of The Josh Hammer Show, as well as senior counsel of the Article 3 Project. Kurt Mills is joining us, Executive Director of the American Conservative magazine, and Joel Rubin is rounding out our panel, a Democrat strategist who also served as a senior State Department official during the Obama administration. Gentlemen, thank you all for joining us here on CounterPoints. As politicians go on their summer break, President Donald Trump really wants the focus to be on a successful first 6 months. He wants to highlight major accomplishments, such as his big trade deals and his big, beautiful bill. But the Epstein controversy threatens to overshadow all of that. Josh, let's start with you. Has this issue blown up because of a mishandling of the files and the optics?
Well, Melinda, I mean, let's be clear here. The administration definitely has not handled this particularly well. It has been far from the mark. I would be the very first to admit that. It's very difficult to reconcile. It's frankly impossible to reconcile, for instance, what Attorney General Pam Bondi said on Fox News back in February with the recent memo that went out from the DOJ and the FBI effectively disclaiming the existence of the very files that the Attorney General said were on her desk back in February. So this has obviously not been handled well. With that stipulation aside, I think it's important to note that President Trump is a unique force of personality. He is a once-a-generation political figure where people are deeply attracted to his substantive agenda, and I think also deeply attracted to him as a personal tour de force. And when Donald Trump is making such a concerted effort as this, he is really digging in his heels. He is trying really hard through tooth and nail to try to turn a page on this saga sooner rather than later there. I think that the conservative base, his own base, is going to follow along sooner rather than later. Again, it has not been handled particularly well, but there were just too many successes as well. I mean, based on the own rubric, on the Trump administration's own metrics there, whether it's the economy, immigration, victories at the U.S. Supreme Court, foreign policy victories, there really have been tremendous successes there. And when you combine that with the fact that the base is deeply loyal to President Trump as an individual, in addition to his policies, I frankly do think that this saga will be behind us sooner rather than later.
Okay, Kurt, what do you make of that assessment? I mean, maybe a lot of things have gone his way in these first 6 months, and yet this is all anyone's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's just another sort of watershed that's been overshadowed by the administration's curious approach to recent events. So, I kind of recall back to last month when the president had his military parade here in Washington. It did not go very well. It was choreographed poorly, and it seemed a sort of ridiculous spectacle juxtaposed with the U.S. joining Israel in its strikes on Iran. Same thing here. The administration should be celebrating, as Josh mentioned, the 6-month anniversary. It was little marked in D.C. or in conservative circles elsewhere because the administration has decided to claim after 10 years of anti-establishment energy that there's nothing to the Jeffrey Epstein story. And I think everybody knows that that's basically not true. If the administration had said, look, we don't have the goods, we call for further investigations, we call for victims to come forward, I think that would have been one thing. But I think, for Epstein scandal to be shut down, especially after the last 45 days of U.S. foreign policy, where U.S. has been just hook, line, and sinker with the Israelis, and everybody knows that the leading theory on why Epstein was such a major American foreign policy in the American scene is that he's very likely was tied to Israel.
Okay.
And I think the optic heinous.
Okay, wait a minute. I'm not going to let that stand at all. That anti-Semitic conspiracy theory has been debunked. It's ridiculous. It's hostile to Jewish people. And it's not the core of the whole issue here right now, which is that the crisis that we're seeing is of Donald Trump's own making, of 10 years of indulging his base in conspiracy theory, in turning them on to all the dark demons that are somehow mystically controlling the government. And of course, to Kurt's, also dark conspiracy theory there, sort of feeding into the long-term anti-Semitic tropes that Trump and his team have also promoted. So now he's getting, from a Democratic perspective, exactly what he asked for. And I think for Democrats, we're just sitting back and watching, although, of course, asking people what the answer is to two questions. Was he lying to you all the time, to his base, or is he covering up and hiding his billionaire friends, or hiding his own name from, as it was just reported yesterday, from being exposed as part of these files? And I think politically what this means is that independents are afraid of what they now see. Donald Trump won this election because he was able to peel off significant chunks of the Democratic coalition, in particular in Black and brown communities, and also moderate independents who thought that they needed a change, they needed a better economy. That's what he ran on. Now, all of a sudden, they're having buyer's remorse. They're looking at this and they're saying, we didn't sign up for cover-ups of pedophiles by the president who said he wanted to be transparent. And they're fleeing, and that's why we're seeing Trump's numbers tanking now to below 40%. He's losing his base, and he's losing the independents who put him in power. But again, this idea of conspiracy theory, Jeffrey Epstein and Mossad, is beyond the pale, I think, for this discussion.
I don't think it's beyond the pale, and I fail to see how it's anti-Semitic. I mean, if the theory,
you're creating an argument that there's somehow a Jewish cabal around the world controlling efforts.
We don't want to go too deep into what's in the files, into why. Let's stay on the politics of it, because we haven't seen the files, we don't know the facts. So rather than speculating about what's in them and why,
we don't know.
Why are we engaging in anti-Semitic conspiracy theory?
Yeah, so let's leave that one to one side. I'm curious to hear from you, Josh, about how you view those
Josh,
comments. I mean, do you think that the president has allowed the optics of this to get away with him? I mean, you were sort of espousing some of the success stories, but as both of our other guests have said, this is what people are talking about.
Look, Melinda, as far as the politics go, Donald Trump is trying really, really, really hard to move on. Okay, he's trying really hard. Again, this has not been handled well. Now, he did direct Attorney General Pam Bondi to try to unseal grand jury testimony. They tried. That came back completely unsurprisingly, and the court, Judge Rosenberg, earlier this week in Florida said that the grand jury testimony is sealed. Again, as a lawyer myself, totally unsurprising. That's typically how grand jury testimony goes. Now, we'll see how it plays out. I mean, there's going to be a little more runway to this story. I, for one, am personally disappointed that this is the way that it's been handled. To give Kurt at least a modicum of credit, it is definitely right that there have been some people that have been deeply animated in part of Trump's base about the Epstein story for a very long time. Folks like Kash Patel, back when he was on the outside, did talk a lot about this story. However, I think it is completely ludicrous. It is ludicrous, I think, to suggest that this is one of the leading factors that Donald Trump's voters care about. Donald Trump's voters, especially those middle class, working class, blue collar voters in the proverbial or literal American heartland, care about the bread and butter issues. They care about the economy, jobs, inflation, immigration, crime. I mean, these are the issues that people voted on, and these are the issues that, frankly, the administration is delivering massive results in there. So, again, with a base as loyal, not just substantively, but personally to Donald Trump as this base is. By the way, the approval ratings are not nearly as catastrophic as Joel is making them out to be. There has been something of a drop in some polls, at least for Gen Z MAGA supporters, Gen Z Republicans, but overall, Trump's approval ratings with Republicans, according to at least some of the data, has actually increased since the Epstein saga started. So the polling is deeply mixed there. I think Trump is weathering this storm ultimately effectively. It is definitely a storm, but he's weathering it. I think it's going to be smoother sailing in the fairly near future, if I had to guess.
Joel, what do you make of that? I mean, do you think that Republicans have misjudged just how deeply people feel about this issue?
Again, this is like in soccer, this is an auto goal in Spanish, or this is an own goal. Literally, Democrats, we have nothing to do with this. This is all the making of the Republican Party, the conspiracy theory about Epstein for years, that something was being hidden. And to Josh's point, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, the two people running the FBI, there are some of the loudest voices who are promoting that over the years. And so now they're in a bind as well. And I think we see that the chickens are coming home to roost. But I would caution Josh on overreading the polls because, if anything, there's a tell. President Trump right now is trying to get Texas, and it's likely that Texas will move forward on this, to a redistrict in the middle of the decade, which is highly abnormal, to gerrymander seats that will end up in Congress to move 5 more seats towards the Republican column. Why? Because he's petrified of these midterm elections. There are almost 40 seats that are competitive right now on Republican turf. The tariff policies has thrown the economy into chaos. The American people are deeply concerned about the attacks against the rule of law that they're witnessing. The number one issue for the president is immigration. And even in national polls across the board, it shows that he's underwater overall. And that's not to mention these other issues. So I think the president realizes how hard it's going to be. And, August is always the month of collapse. It happened to Joe Biden 4 years ago when he had a horrific August after the withdrawal from Afghanistan and the collapse of much of his political support. And I think we're about to witness another horrific August. Why? Because even the House Republicans messed up by adjourning a day early. So now there will likely be a vote on releasing the Epstein files in early September, guaranteeing that this will be an issue to be discussed throughout August.
Kurt, do you agree? Do you think this is going to blow over? Is this storm going to continue? Is it becoming a dangerous distraction from the work Republicans have and want to be doing?
It's certainly becoming a dangerous distraction. I mean, everyone that I've talked to within the administration, granted it might be, somewhat self-selecting, seems pretty demoralized, seems pretty distracted. The president can't get his message out. I'm not really sure that's up for dispute. As to, how long this will drag on, I think it's a major scandal. I think it is the timing with U.S. foreign policy decisions in June remains pretty curious. And I think this could drag on if the war between Israel and Gaza drags on and the crisis between Israel and Iran drags on. It's very possible something else comes out. I agree with the structural case that the schedule might make it, be less important or more important. But I think base case, we are talking about this come to autumn, and that's a fiasco for the administration. And frankly, I think it is interesting. And I think a lot of Democrats are going to ignore my co-panelist advice there, because a lot of Epstein's collaborators and clients and friends were frankly Democrats. And this is why this is such a curious maneuver for a Trump Republican White House. The Republicans are now at risk of owning the Epstein scandal, just as they are at risk of owning the Gaza war, just as they're at risk of owning the Ukraine war. These are all own goals. And I think it is related to the potential decline in Trump's poll numbers. Yes, it's not the number one issue. I think the number one issue for the Republicans is immigration, but attriting support from the low 40s to the high 30s or the low 30s, that's not good. And that puts Trump into Biden territory as it happened in 2021. It's something he should avoid and get a handle on right now.
Josh, do you think that this is going to be a major scandal?
Well,
sorry, go ahead, Joel.
Why Democrats? Yeah, I mean, look, the reason why Democrats didn't make a big deal out of this is pretty obvious, because Democrats basically didn't have anything to fear from these files and didn't think they were a big deal. This has all been ginned up amongst the MAGA base and the Republican leadership. They're the ones that care so deeply about it.
Majorities of Democrats want to see the files released too. I mean, American
Democrats have called for the files to be released. Ro Khanna is pushing for a bill.
We're going to come specifically to the Democrats and their role in this in an upcoming segment. So let's leave that for our future discussion that will come up just shortly. Let's sort of stay semi-focused just on Republicans for the moment. We're not going to let you off the hook, though, Joel. Don't you worry about that. Josh, I want to ask you. Do you agree that this is going to become a major scandal, as Kurt had said?
No, I do not. Look, two things can be true at once, as is often the case. The administration has not handled this affair particularly well. It has been not just not their finest hour, but indeed one of the lowest hours of this second Trump presidency. I'm not offering apologia for the Attorney General, the FBI Director, things like that. I call it like I see it, and this has frankly not been handled well. On the other hand, I just simply think that it cannot be emphasized enough that this is very much a disproportionate issue for the blue-checked Twitterati, for the kind of people that attend high-volume conservative political conferences, for the kind of people who run actual or purported conservative magazines. I mean, this is an issue that is a big issue for folks like that. It is not a major issue for the median Donald Trump voter out in the proverbial or literal American heartland. It's just not. And when you actually look at the issues that Trump is delivering on, he really is delivering over and again. And I will also add that what our Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has started to declassify and reveal here. And look, you can be very cynical about this. You can say that she's trying to do this just as a distraction from the Epstein memo. On the substance of it, I think that Russiagate is a much, much, much bigger deal, frankly, than Jeffrey Epstein, because Epstein is a mystery. It is a scandal. There's a lot of things that don't necessarily add up. I personally would say that Jeffrey Epstein was most likely to be kind of a Jay Gatsby-esque character. It's a new essay from Christopher Rufo. I think he kind of nails it on the head there. But regardless, Russiagate, going back to the Obama administration, the transition period from 2016 to 2017, this is a directly hot-button political issue. I mean, this is fiery stuff that the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, is declassifying there. There's apparently going to be potential for criminal referrals. We'll see where that goes. As a lawyer, I actually have my doubts, for what it's worth, about where those prosecutions could go. But they're already trying to turn the page, and I think fairly successfully. Based on the most recent news cycles that I've seen here in the United States, the attention has largely, not entirely, but largely shifted already, I would argue, from Epstein over to Russiagate.
Okay, we're going to move on just a moment, but I do need to give you right of reply there, Joel, with regard to Russiagate.
Oh, sure. I mean, Russiagate is like catnip for the Republican base, and it had to get trotted out at some point. And this is the moment to try to distract folks from the Epstein scandal, which is a scandal about pedophiles, not something to scoff at and look away from, where President Trump's name is credibly in those files, where his top officials for years talked about releasing those files, are now in charge of agencies and are not releasing those files. That's a scandal. And the Russiagate, even Secretary of State Marco Rubio, when he chaired the Intelligence Committee in the Senate, basically said the opposite of what Tulsi Gabbard is now alleging. And by the way, there was a great question yesterday in the White House briefing that should be put out in front of everyone, which is why even refer President Obama to prosecution when he can't be prosecuted when Donald Trump brought a case to the Supreme Court that said that a president cannot be prosecuted for official acts. This is all nothing but gaslighting his own supporters, and I hope they see through it.
Okay, let's move back to the political ramifications. No politician is ever universally admired, not even by their own party. But this is perhaps the first time we're seeing very certain parts of President Trump's MAGA base publicly criticising him. Kurt, is this Epstein case causing a split in the Republican camp?
I think it depends on how you define camp. I think a lot of the leading luminaries of Trump's movement are very concerned about this. And then on the other hand, or meanwhile, I should say, it is robbing the administration of its anti-establishment energy. Let's not be naive here. If the economy is good, if the president's health is good, he can pretty much do whatever and enact whatever policy he wants to do. But if he tries to do George W. Bush's third term, a conventional Republican administration, he is going to, and I think you've already seen these levels of defections, he is going to lose a lot of the energy that got him elected in 2016 and again in 2024. And you're going to see an administration that, yeah, has the support of majorities of Republicans, has the support of 30% plus Americans, but does not have the sort of mandate energy that Trump had in January of 2025. And I think, frankly, it's because policy does matter. And the last 2 months, you have seen an administration that has basically cribbed from the George W. Bush playbook on foreign policy and is now casting aspersions on anyone who would ask basic questions on the Epstein scandal, which all of Trump's major proteges and acolytes did throughout the 2024 campaign, including his son, including the vice president, and it matters. And I think just basically the other side of the argument here is that we should shut it down. We shouldn't care. We shouldn't talk about this. I think it's a loser. It smells suspicious. It doesn't pass the laugh test.
Josh, is the Republican campaign going to lose, the Republican Party going to lose energy, as Kurt was saying, unless they can re-steer the ship here?
All right. So first of all, again, as a lawyer here, this notion of the quote unquote Epstein files, as if it is kind of just a tight and neat and tidy sort of thing. That's not how it works. This particular jargon of the so-called Epstein files has been bandied about American political discourse for years now. It's not entirely obvious to me what exactly the term is even getting at. I mean, kind of the original sin of the entire Epstein legal affair was made back during the Bush administration, back around 2007 or so, when the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Florida, Alex Acosta, actually sent this case to the local Palm Beach County Florida State Prosecutor's Office. So, I mean, is that part of the Epstein files, what the Palm Beach County prosecutor found? The feds took up the case again in 2019. It was later that year that Epstein allegedly, your mileage may vary, but allegedly killed himself in the New York City jail. I mean, is that part of the Epstein files? We know that Ghislaine Maxwell is in jail. I mean, like, what exactly is the Epstein files there? I mean, this notion that we were going to get like a very neat list here of, oh, wow, here are all the names of people who are engaging in horrific child sex trafficking and unspeakable acts of pedophilia on the Lolita Express. The notion that there was ever going to be a single list that would be produced in kind of neat and tidy fashion was utterly ludicrous. Anyone who knows literally anything whatsoever about the law, about legal process, about legal procedure, criminal procedure, could have told you that this was just pure unadulterated BS basically from the get-go. So that does raise kind of serious questions.
I agree with that.
But why was it used so long for so many years? But why was it used so aggressively for so many years then by Donald Trump? If all this is BS, this doesn't matter. Why did they talk about it for all those years?
Agreed. I mean, the administration itself teased the Epstein files thing in early winter. So they made their own bet on this. I think the key thing here, though, is that the administration
people say dumb stuff in the context of political campaigns. I mean, this is political rhetoric.
It happened in the White House.
It's not just for the last year. It's multiple years. This is going back multiple years. This became part of the mantra.
Okay, let's let Kurt finish.
Scandal. This is okay. It's a good technical point, but this is a scandal for one reason.
It's because they were lying. That's why, is what you're saying.
Who is lying?
What you're saying
Who
is
is
ultimately
lying?
they were lying to their voters.
Who lying about what?
What then, if we take Josh's argument to the logical conclusion, the point is that Trump and his team for years and his allies in the echo chamber were lying to the MAGA base to keep them mobilized, and they knew it was a lie.
This is American politics 101. You overpromised.
The Epstein files, it became a term of art for investigating the Epstein scandal writ large. And so, yes, they made theatrics out of it. And then in July, suddenly they declared there is no Epstein scandal. That's why we're talking about this, because it's weird to suddenly come out and say, we don't care about investigating this at all. And then even though they are investigating it a little bit now, it's clear that they want to investigate other things like Russiagate, and that they don't really want to take the full force of the government into it. And I think it's a political error. I agree that Russiagate is a scandal, but I think the American people have rendered their verdict on that. They reelected Donald Trump, the president of the United States. Americans obviously don't believe in Russiagate. They wanted daylight and sunlight on the Epstein story. It was an issue in the campaign, and it's strange that the White House tried to shut it down.
Actually, those points about American voters leads me on to a question I have for you, Joel. The everyday American who voted for Trump on the promise of reducing the cost of living, boosting domestic opportunities, surely they aren't going to be preoccupied with the accusations surrounding a dead millionaire. They're preoccupied with the domestic things that Trump has said he will do for them. So why would this affect the majority of his voting base and therefore damage the Republicans in general?
Well, if only American politics still worked that way. I mean, all you have to do is look at the Biden administration. There were significant accomplishments that President Biden achieved in terms of investment in the United States economy. American voters forgot about that. Our politics is different now. These kinds of issues, and to Josh's point earlier, the elite opinion shapers of the parties have a huge impact on how voters view their political leaders. And in this case, it sets up now for Trump a theme of dishonesty, of lack of transparency, of not speaking straight to his voters, themes that he said he was opposite of when he was a candidate. So the economic issues, of course, we could have a critique and I could argue about the problems, and there are also some positives, but that's just not how our politics works right now. And Americans, they might look at their pocketbook. They were doing quite well under Biden. The stock market kept on going up. Inflation kept on going down. They didn't vote on that. They voted on other issues. They voted on social issues. So Donald Trump, he got off of that topic. I'll close with this, of the economics being his core one, but really the themes that are now being countered by this Epstein saga really cut directly into his entire persona as a political leader.
Josh, what do you make of that?
There is definitely some truth to the fact that a lot of people on the campaign trail did talk a lot about this. But it seems to me like there was just a basic case of overpromising. I mean, this is a very common thing on the American political campaign trail. I mean, I hate to be kind of the voice of cynicism and sobriety, for some viewers who might have kind of a Pollyanna-ish, starry-eyed view of the American political process, but politicians have been overpromising and in many cases under-delivering for as old as the American Republic itself. Now, in the case of Donald J. Trump, I actually really don't think that he is under-delivering when it comes to his core substantive campaign promises, when it comes to everything from the economy to immigration to other DOJ victories, to mass victories at the Supreme Court, to unheralded foreign policy peace deals, including things like the Congo and Rwanda, India and Pakistan, things that people have tended to just forget about. I mean, he's wheeling and dealing around the world and achieving a lot domestically for his voters as well there. So I really do think that he is delivering. The way that the Epstein affair has been handled is generally unfortunate. It certainly seems, based on everything that I've been able to glean and my conversations with sources in the administration and the publicly available record, it seems to me like there were very tense disagreements within the administration as to how to go about this there. There's been many rumors of a huge blow-up fight between Dan Bongino at the FBI and Pam Bondi. I cannot personally verify that or anything there. It would not surprise me there. But I ultimately think, if I had to guess, that there was a lot of overpromising here. And then when push comes to shove, when it comes to the moment of trying to unveil, they probably ran into a lot of serious legal and procedural obstacles, the likes of which I have described, and kind of what we just saw earlier this week in Florida. When it comes to the grand jury testimony not being able to be unsealed there. I mean, these are very real obstacles in the American legal and political process.
Kurt, some Republican commentators also said that President Trump risked dividing the party or losing his base when he bombed Iran. But then when the bombs started falling and then the 12-day war ended, everyone fell back into line. Why do you think that this situation could be any different?
I'm not sure that's really accurate. I mean, there are a lot of Americans, and I'm one of them, that is glad that the president is not Kamala Harris today. But it is hard to measure relative levels of enthusiasm within the coalition. And what is basically making the argument here is that the bombing of Iran, the weird cloak and dagger around Epstein, is making Trump a more divisive president, and he is attriting his anti-establishment energy that he entered politics in and re-entered the White House with in the early part of this year. This administration is just a lot less fun right now. And I know a number of staffers who are demotivated, and I think it is relevant that the conservative media ecosphere is sort of out for blood on this, and that Trump is losing prominent boosters that helped bring him back to power. Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, it's disparate. And he's losing all of these different figures for different reasons, but a foreign policy that is frankly at the behest of a foreign power in this country's own military-industrial complex.
Insane.
Can't help himself.
Kurt is literally saying that Donald J. Trump and J.D. Vance are owned by the Jews. That is what he is saying on TV. This is what my interview with the Turning Point News said. That's what Dave Smith said.
Melinda, you're not.
Donald Trump is so stupid
okay.
that he.
I hope this is very nourishing for your viewers.
Too often, but
I think you are allowed.
This is ridiculous.
It's not ridiculous. It's not ridiculous.
Foreign power. Okay.
Well,
seriously,
on the one hand, it's ridiculous. On the other hand, Kurt is saying that Donald Trump is so stupid and impotent that he can't even make his own decisions about war and peace. I mean, it's just unfathomably stupid.
No, I think did
it not occur to you, Kurt? Wait. Let me ask a question. Did it not occur to you that over four presidents have said that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon and all options were on the table, including military force? That bipartisan
including Trump on his escalator speech in summer 2015.
I mean, this is, but no, blame the Jews for this. That's the answer. Blame the Jews.
What is your question?
I mean, it's obvious that you have a target in mind.
You're going to call me a bigot because you can't make an argument and you're a bully.
No, I'm going to say that pretty much whenever Jewish or Israel topics come out, you engage in a conspiracy theory about it.
Okay,
I think the Israel lobby narrative is well established.
Another one. There we go.
Okay, Joel, just let Kurt respond to those comments.
Yeah, I mean, I have a hard time.
Just let Kurt respond.
Joel, do you hear yourself, man? Okay. I think it is a fair.
I absolutely do.
Go ahead, Kurt.
I think it is a fair critique that the U.S. is too in bed with the Israeli government, particularly this particular government led by Benjamin Netanyahu, and it is impacting foreign policy decision making. I think a lot of people who like those decisions are not Jewish. Donald Trump is not Jewish. The chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, who's happy as a clam when this happened, Roger Wicker, not Jewish. Tom Cotton, not Jewish. Lindsey Graham, not Jewish. It doesn't mean that the U.S. is too close to Israel during this war and that is not prudent. And it doesn't mean that there isn't such a thing as the Israel lobby. I think everybody knows that there is. And if you want to call it something,
I think it's fine. It's a consistent
it's not a conspiracy theory
in your commentary from your first statement about Epstein and the Mossad to now Israel controlling the.
I don't know. I think we don't know. We don't know what the Epstein story is.
We don't know about this.
All right, I'm going to steer us back on track here, gentlemen, because we are running out of time. So I appreciate our robust back and forth on that issue. Let's move on onto our final segment here before we run out of time. The suspicion surrounding the whole Epstein affair is nothing new. What is new, though, is the fact that the Democrats are now calling for full transparency. They had plenty of time to do it when they were in office to release relevant information and have been accused themselves of withholding the files. So it's not surprising that some people are now asking questions whether they're genuinely concerned with being open and honest or just out for political point scoring. So Joel, let me direct this one to you. Why are the Democrats jumping on the bandwagon now when they neglected calls to release files earlier?
Well, first and foremost, Democrats want to help support the Republicans who are looking for transparency into this issue. I think that's why transparency is a good thing. And the Republicans put this on the agenda. The Republicans are pushing this through the Rules Committee. The Oversight Committee just called for a subpoena the Justice Department for documents. Democrats aren't driving this. Democrats have no power. Democrats are in the minority in both chambers of Congress and out of the White House. So, whatever it is, the Democrats are supporting this because I think there's a recognition that if Republicans want to do transparency and oversight of their president for the first time in 6 months, that Democrats are going to support it.
But why didn't the Democrats want transparency when they were in power, when other people were calling for the release of the files?
Because, quite frankly, there's probably not much in these files the Democrats think were worthy of moving up. But then if you want to be really generous to the Biden team, you can say they didn't want to embarrass Donald Trump, whose name might be in those files, according to reporting. And Joe Biden is not the kind of guy that goes around and trying to embarrass other presidents, unlike this one.
You tried to put him in prison. I don't...
Kurt, what do you think? What do you think, Jim? Why do you think the Democrats are jumping on now when they didn't release it when they had the ability to?
Because that's politics, and I think it's a clear shot and opening for the Democrats, and I think that's pretty much the answer. I think that the truth is we don't know, and I think the scandal here is that the Republicans tried to shut down any further investigation, and that's why we're talking about this. Mm-hmm. And I think we are. The fact is Epstein was a scandal in the 2000s, and it sort of died down, and then new reporting happened in 2018, 2019 that resulted in his arrest and then suicide or whatever you think it was. I think it actually likely was a suicide. And then from there it was reinvestigated. And now that the Republicans in the White House are trying to shut it down and allied with Mike Johnson to try to shut it down, that's opening up another question. We probably don't know. The Zodiac killer case remains opened, but the White House didn't do that. The White House said there was nothing to see here. And now this is a huge liability for Republicans because they're going to own this scandal, which is ridiculous considering that most of Epstein's allies were Democrats.
Josh, what do you think? Why are the Democrats joining the pylon now when they had the power to do this when they held the White House?
Yeah, I think Kurt's basically correct on this one. I mean, this is just politics at work. I mean, the Democrats smell blood in the water. They correctly, in this case, sense that the Trump administration has not handled this super well. I think where my disagreement is that this is, I don't think there's going to be a massive vulnerability going into, let's call it the midterm elections next fall. I mean, let alone 2028. The notion that American voters have that long of a memory, I think is totally ludicrous. In addition to all the points that I've made about how the median Trump voter, this is not anywhere on their top 10 to 15 issues that they voted on. So I think all these things ultimately do mitigate in favor of the administration, but the administration has been generally successful. I mean, notwithstanding many attempts from lower court judges to issue these so-called nationwide injunctions and whatnot there, it's had a very, very dynamic and active track record in the first 6 months. This is, I think, undoubtedly its biggest mistake. We can call it an own goal, whatever verbiage you want to use there. But if the Democrats are looking to glom onto something, especially to kind of stick it in voters' minds as Congress is about to go or not go, I guess we'll see, go on the August recess, this strikes me as the best candidate for them for a story to glom onto there. And, furthermore, to the extent that Democrats are potentially worried about the release of the Epstein files, because as Kurt correctly notes, most of Epstein's confidants were well-known Democratic figures, people like Bill Clinton, Alan Dershowitz, and so forth. To the extent that Democrats might harbor any sincere doubts or any sincere worries about unveiling the Epstein files, they probably feel pretty confident that the Trump administration will not do so. That's probably part of what's going on here as well.
Joel, do you think this is going to have an impact come elections next year, come the midterms? Do you think Democrats are going to be able to capitalize on this?
Well, it depends what's in the files.
Even if the files aren't released, is this going to have, even if we just continue with this back and forth speculation, is this going to have any long-term implications?
I'll tell you, one of the most unpredictable things about American politics is unpredictability. We are in the fall quickly heading into the beginning of the candidate selections and who runs and who doesn't run for key nominations in the different parties heading into the midterm elections. This is going to be a discussion at every town hall. This is going to be a discussion across the board. Do you support opening up transparency and opening up the DOJ and these Epstein files, or do you support closing it down, shutting down, and moving on? And that's going to be a question every candidate's going to have to answer. And we'll see if the voters care or not. But I think that it is certainly something that's going to continue to dog Donald Trump, just like other issues of dog Bill Clinton got dogged for years about infidelity scandals. They don't just disappear overnight because voters don't vote on them. They stick around for a while.
Josh, do you think we're going to see long-term flow-ons from this as we head into the midterm cycle?
No, absolutely not. I mean, what did they say? A week is a lifetime in politics or something like that? I mean, we're talking about over a year from now, the midterm elections. I mean, the notion that the median American is going to go to his or her local pollster in November 2026 and cast a ballot for the local congressman or U.S. Senate, governor, attorney general, whatever the case may be, based on the Epstein files, it's totally mind-boggling. I mean, it is simply not how American politics work. And again, to make another point that I've already made here, when it comes especially to Donald Trump's own base, the polling is mixed. The polling is decidedly mixed right now as to whether or not Trump has actually lost approval in the eyes of his voters. There is some data evincing that maybe he has, at least with some demographics, but there's also some data to indicate that maybe he has not. But when it comes to the voting booth over a year from now, voters are going to think about the economy, about inflation, about jobs, about trade, immigration, about all of the above that they voted for back in the 2024 election when Donald Trump became the first president since Grover Cleveland to serve two non-consecutive terms. So, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that drives American politics, I think, ultimately, not stuff like this.
But on the question of political strategy, I agree. There's going to be more to it. But if it hadn't been politically salient, I don't believe we would have seen Trump and others so actively promoting the Epstein conspiracy. It mobilized their voters. It excited the base. If it didn't poll well, they wouldn't have done it. So I wouldn't discount the impact it's going to have on base voters that are needed in midterm elections.
Kurt, how can they turn it around to not be outflanked by the Democrats ahead of the midterms?
Trump has to do a volte-face. He has to, if he doesn't want it to be a political liability, he has to encourage full transparency. Maybe even an interview describing his relationship with Epstein. Granted, it's probably peaked 30 years ago. I think that would go a long way instead of just so bunkering down and saying there's nothing here. As to vis-a-vis the midterms, I think we don't know yet. This is a kind of case that could easily force the White House to appoint a special counsel. And yeah, Russiagate was basically a fake scandal. but the special counsel's investigation dragged on from 17 to 2019, and that was well past the midterms. And this is why, even if there's nothing in there, even if there's nothing to it, there's clearly something to it. Whether or not Trump has any exposure is a different question. This is why handling this so poorly was a problem. If they didn't have the goods in early July, they could have said that and urged greater transparency. Instead, they tried to shut it down. And that's why we're having this conversation at the end of the month. And it's only heating up.
Joel, as we're wrapping up, final word from you. What's the next move from the Democrats?
I think the next move is to keep on pushing like we've seen Ro Khanna do, which is to try to get votes on every possible piece of legislation that comes up and try to get a vote in September from the House chamber to start. That would require release of all of the files and keep this discussion going and make sure that the Americans have the frame clear. Either Trump and his allies were lying to you Republicans for years about this, or they have something to hide, and maybe they're hiding their friends as well. So what's the answer? And I think that's where Democrats are going to go, keep on pushing to get an answer to that question.
And Josh, final word from you. How does the Republican Party avoid getting outflanked here? What's their next move?
Yeah, I think that the Trump administration is going to continue to do what it's done best for the past 6 months, which is just rack up victory after victory on both the domestic and the foreign stages here. On the domestic stage, when it comes to reducing inflation rates, when it comes to sealing the border, we have the most secure border in the entire modern history of the United States. Border crossings and so-called gotaways have gotten to, frankly, near zero. It's been an astonishingly successful administration from an immigration enforcement perspective. We just had a historic trade deal reached with Japan. Any number of other trade deals. Philippines are coming in on a basically daily basis. The foreign policy victories are very real. Kurt's, different take notwithstanding, what President Trump achieved in the 12-day war was frankly phenomenal. He accomplished multiple campaign goals without a single, not only without a single American casualty, without a single shot fired at a single bomber, sailor, Marine there. He severely took back Iran's nuclear program while not getting involved in a neoconservative, moralistic boondoggle. It was a brilliant act of statesmanship. You add that with Congo, Rwanda, India, Pakistan. I mean, this administration is winning on all fronts. So it's going to do a lot more of that, Melinda. And ultimately, I think the voters will ultimately move on as well.
Well, that remains to be seen. It'll be interesting how it all plays out. We appreciate all of your contributions on Counterpoint. Josh Hammer, Newsweek's Senior Editor-at-Large and host of The Josh Hammer Show. Thank you. Kurt Mills, Executive Director of the American Conservative magazine. Thanks for joining us. And Joel Rubin, rounding out our panel, Democrat strategist who previously served in the Obama administration. We appreciate all of your contributions. And of course, our show is nothing without you joining us from home. Thanks for your attention here on Counterpoints. You can watch all our debates and interviews by subscribing to Al Arabiya English on YouTube and follow us on X and TikTok. We'll see you for the next one.